What is up, everybody? Welcome in. Welcome in. It's been a hot minute since we hopped on an old Friday AMA stream. How's everybody doing? How's life going? How's everything treating y'all? Hopefully it's going really, really well. So haven't done this for like a month, it feels like. So if you are new or need a refresher, Friday AMA, just ask away. Anything, fantasy football, dynasty football, life in general, whatever it is. And we're just gonna hang out for the next like hour and a half, and we'll just get through all the questions and we'll see what's going. Jordan, happy Friday, my man. Toronto Dave is in the chat as well too. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Peter's already got some questions. He was here at half an hour ago. So Peter says, league economy is whack. One quarterback league coming off of a ship. Need to replace TJ Hawkinson. Is the 107 too much to acquire for Andrews? Other options are deal around 111 for Ingram and more, or try to acquire 104 to take Bowers. Trading Hawk in a flip deal for a healthy tight end is probably unlikely as well, is what he noted in the next comment. Yeah, that would be the most ideal scenario, I think, is trying to flip Hawk himself and go over to Andrews to Travis Kelce, plus maybe add something to Hawk and go up and get McBride or Laporta, flip Hawk for Pitts or somebody like that. That would be the more ideal scenario. I don't think that the 1.07 is too much to pay for Mark Andrews. I would rather pay 107 for Andrews than 111 for Evan Ingram plus. Like if it's Ingram and like the 25 second, I'd rather pay the 107 for Andrews. So I'm just more confident in the elite fantasy output that he's going to have as like the number one option still in Baltimore. And the 107, I mean, you're past obviously the top three wide receivers. You're probably past Bowers at that point. And probably like maybe Worthy goes, maybe Brooks goes, maybe BTJ goes. So the 107 is basically you're going to get one of Worthy, BTJ, or Brooks. And if it's Worthy, I would rather have Andrews than Worthy. I'd rather have Brooks than Andrews. And BTJ, I'm just in love with. So I'd probably rather have him than Andrews, but it's not a bad price to pay. I feel like that's very good market value. Like I'd rather have Andrews than Caleb Williams, rather have Andrews than McConkey or Benson or Coleman or any of the other guys after that point. So I would pay the 1.07 for Mark Andrews. I'm not opposed to that. And if you get something a little extra on top to do that, I think that would be cool too. Or, figure out any sort of like 107 and a second for Andrews and maybe something that's worth a little bit more than a second, So you could try to even it out a little bit more or get another upgrade somewhere else or another future pick later on down the road. I'd rather do that than the Ingram trade. Preston is a contender in a 10-team Superflex tight end premium start 12. Won the championship last year. What position would you address? Was there more to this question, or is I'm just going to vaguely go off of what position would you address? Hopefully there's more to this question. I think we'll have to see. Matt, best non-rookie targets for a teardown rebuild. This is actually a really interesting question. Let's pull up the old ADP so I have a player set list. Best non-rookie targets for a teardown rebuild. I would be interested in TJ Hawkinson. I think is a really good one because he might be a player that, like I said, like I think as a contender, I think TJ Hawkinson makes sense to flip because he's not really going to do all that much this year. He's not going to play for like the first half of the year. And then when he comes back, it's going to be rough. So trading for TJ Hawkinson now, more aiming for 2025 and 2026, I think is a really strong play. You could look at, I think Tank Dell is another interesting guy too, just because Diggs is there now, but he's not there next year. Same kind of with JSN. Odunze is in that same kind of situation, but he's a rookie, so we're looking for non-rookies. Rashee Rice is another good one. Benson is still, I'm just running down the player list. Benson's a rookie, but I like him too. Still going down the list. Lots of rookies. Tyjae Spears. Dontavian Wicks, I love for sure. Jalen Wright, rookie. Yeah, when we get down into this range that I keep scrolling down into, it's all going to be rookies. Hopefully those first couple of names were helpful though. Uh, Christian Kirk might be another good one as well, just to have as. I mean, he's 27, so but I think he's cheap enough that he fits. That he fits in terms of you get an ROI on him. That if you pay a very low price for him now, you might be able to flip him for more later. Um, so I think that he's an interesting guy. Um, Deontay is kind of in that similar range too, where it's like you could probably flip him if he does well in Carolina. Doesn't really uh doesn't really cost you all that much to get into him. Bunch of rookies. Those would be the interesting names that I would look at is like JSN, Tank Dell, TJ Hawkinson, Rasheed Rice, um, buying into the guys that maybe are coming off of an injury right now or don't have the greatest situations now, but like they could open up in the next year would be the perfect guys that I would be looking for. It's basically what I was looking with all this. T. Higgins is probably another good one, kind of coming off of injury. Um, Everybody hates DK Metcalf, so you can buy into Metcalf. Uh, you know, players like that are just a little bit cheaper than they probably should be for reasons that really isn't due to their talent. Jordan has a startup draft this weekend and is the commissioner for the league. Do you prefer standard snake or third round reversal? I actually, um, because of Scott Fishbowl for the past couple of years where we've done third round reversal, I do prefer third round reversal. I think I think mathematically, people have found that it just kind of ends up evening out the teams more as well, because you get the flip. So it doesn't really mean that you have like an overpowering team that had the ability to get the 1.01, then has the 202, 212 and the 301, and they're the team that has three top 25 players, one of which is should be the best player in the league. And then it just kind of goes on down from there where the 102 has, three top 26 players and one of them is the second best player. So it kind of flips it where it makes it a little bit more even. So I prefer if you're the commish and people are down for it, I would do the third round reversal and give that a shot. Nolan, 12 team Superflex, start 10. Tank Dell or Mike Evans in an early to mid 25 second, looking to contend. Um, Interesting. I would I would go with the Tank Dell side. I understand the trade down to the Mike Evans in the early to mid second, but if that were to fall any more towards mid, like if you're projecting it to already be like maybe the 203, 204, 205, but if it goes to 206, 207, 208, if they do make the playoffs, then this trade a year from now, I think looks really, really bad, especially if you don't end up winning the championship. Like if you're the, I could be wrong on this, but the phrasing that you say you're looking to contend, in the back of my head, I'm wondering if your team is maybe kind of ready, maybe not really ready, and you're just trying to push it to a point where maybe it's not ready to get to right now. And if that's the case, I would prefer to have Tank Dell. I wouldn't be surprised if Tank Dell and Mike Evans scored very similarly this year. Um, and so then next year, going into next year, you have a receiver that's going to be 24, 25 years old versus a receiver that's 31, 32 years old. And so I'd rather, and Tank Dell's situation obviously improves with Stephon Diggs maybe leaving in free agency. He's tied to CJ Stroud, and God forbid Tank Dell outscore Mike Evans this year. Then that just means that you made the wrong move entirely, even if you were looking to contend because you gave up the higher producing asset and the younger asset. It just so happens to work out in this trade specifically. So I would keep Tank Dell here and just see what happens and keep the flexibility of the youth. All right, Preston, we're back. Which position would you bolster after winning the championship last year in a 10-team Superflex tight end premium start 12? Hurts, Watson, Carr, Fields. Evans, DJ Moore, Pickens, T, Terry, Amari. You got Kelsey and Hawk at the tight end, so you're pretty set there. Running backs look really great. It's the quarterback position. You need a better QB2, I think, than Watson or Carr. I don't really want to be like, I think Watson is a fantastic QB3, but I want another quarterback. Like, I want an upgrade on Carr to get you like it can be a Jared Goff, it could be a Brock Purdy, somebody who is projecting to be better than Deshaun Watson, but is still maybe it doesn't have to be like an every week starter like a Jalen Hurts. Like, you don't got to move all the way up to get like Kyler Murray or somebody like that. Um, but somebody that I think is better than Deshaun Watson projection wise, but is still somebody that you're comfortable benching for Deshaun Watson if Watson has a better outcome and you can kind of stream between the two guys. Carr, I don't think is that right now. Fields doesn't have a path to a starter role right now. So I think it's the quarterback position. The way that I would go about that, um, you don't have a 25 first, but you do have 3 seconds, have all future picks. Um, the Herbert owner is interested in Fields. So can you turn Fields and mm, Fields? I don't know what I don't know what the Fields car and all 3 seconds for Justin Herbert. I mean, I would do that. I don't think that gets done. That feels very compiley. But it's the quarterback position that I'd be looking to attack. And even if that means that I got to move off of one of these running backs. Like if you got to use Saquon, dangle Saquon out there to get a better quarterback, you might be able to get somebody like a Trevor Lawrence or like a Kyler Murray or um, somebody, a Dak Prescott along those lines. If you start dangling Saquon Barkley out there and you also give them, Derek Carr and then maybe also toss them like Terry McLaurin or somebody like that, I get that you're moving like 2 starters for really like 1, and a start 12, you really gotta prioritize this depth. I'd imagine that's why you won because your depth is insane in this league. But the quarterback position is the one that I would be looking at the most here. Um, which in a 10 team, I feel like would be easier to try to pull somebody away because I feel like there's gotta be a couple teams in here that, have a lot of quarterbacks. That's what I try. It's just Jay in an 8-team start 8 quarterbacks are Burrow and Kyler. I'd imagine this is maybe one quarterback. If it's Superflex, that's fantastic. I'd hope it's Superflex in an 8-team. Have all picks plus this and next year's first. Should I try to get another hammer, or do you think I can contend with that and keep my draft capital? Um, this team is so good, but I bet you have a bunch of other teams in an 8-team league are so good too. I would try to upgrade the running back position. Um, in a start 8, you're starting jeez, you have to decide between one of those tight ends. You're starting Chase and Garrett Wilson and probably Nico until Marvin and Malik take off. You're starting JT and Gibbs. I mean, yeah, how can you maneuver this to get a way better wide receiver? Like, can you upgrade Garrett Wilson just to like Amon Ra or CeeDee Lamb? Can you upgrade JT to CMC and go from there? Can you uh like you have 3 top 5 tight ends, so how can you utilize one of them? Maybe find somebody who doesn't have those tight ends, and you get like a massive upgrade at one of the other positions to, like I said, like a CeeDee Lamb, an Amon Ra, a Justin Jefferson, a Christian McCaffrey. I don't think you need to do that to compete. I definitely think you can compete even in an 8-team league, um, with this roster, but it would be something that if you wanted to try it, those would be the options that I'd be looking at and move it up just to try to get like peak players at each of their positions. And if you got to give up some depth to do that, then fine by me. J Dub has to cut 2 in a 10-team Superflex half PPR going between Dobbins, Khalil Herbert, Keaton Mitchell, Derek Carr, Bryce Young, and Kendre Miller. Ooh. To be honest with you, the really easy candidates are J.K. Dobbins and Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell for sure. Just because he's coming off of the ACL injury. They signed Derrick Henry. Like, there's not really a path for him. Uh, Dobbins is easier just because he's coming off of the ACL as well. Was already coming off of he's coming off an Achilles after already coming off of an ACL. Brand new team. Um, they still have Gus Edwards on the team. They draft another rookie in Kamani Vidal. Like Dobbins is like a home run upside swing. I get it, but I would of these four running backs, if you include Kendry Miller, um, Herbert and Miller are for sure. I'm keeping both of them over Dobbins and Mitchell just because Kendry has a path to start with Alvin Kamara, let alone being the handcuff, and Herbert is in the same situation with DeAndre Swift. So I'd keep both those running backs over Dobbins and Mitchell. I would definitely keep Bryce Young. He's not a player that I don't think is cuttable in a super flex league. You could trade him away for a future second, two future seconds, and then not have to, that shortens this list, I guess. You wouldn't have to cut one of these guys. Uh, Carr is fine. Like if you could trade him for a couple thirds, I would do that rather than cut him entirely. Like there might be options here where you can just trade them for cheap than having. But if you have to cut them, Dobbins and Mitchell would be the two for me. Ooh, I'm almost on the clock on Scott Fishbowl. Where are we at? Where are we at? Few picks away. We're almost there. It's just Jay Shaw. Oh yeah, we already got. Yep. Jordan, if you had to choose one to play for the next year, college football 25 or Madden 25, I would choose college football 25 just because Madden has not changed since like Madden 15. So that game has literally been the same. I haven't played a Madden game in probably 3 or 4 years. I don't buy them. I don't even own a console. I play on PC. So I technically can't even play college football 25. I'd have to buy an Xbox or a PS5 to do it. But if I had to choose one, I would choose college football 25 just because of uh, I think it looks more exciting. I've seen the gameplay footage of it where they have all of the like factors of weather and when you get hit on like your left arm, then your left arm's fatigue goes down. And it's not just your overall like body fatigue. I think all those little things are just really, really cool. And they might be glitchy and they might not actually pan out, but I think that just the fact that they're trying it is more exciting to me. Plus, you have all the other, road to glory and all that kind of stuff. I'd rather do that in college football than just play another Madden game. that would be that'd be my pick. Matt, which side do you prefer in this deal? And is it close in half PPR? Waddle in a mid 25 second for George Pickens, Terry McLaurin, and Isaiah Likely. FYI, I have Andrew, so Likely is a handcuff. Um, I'd rather have Waddle in the 25 second. I don't really know if it's super close. I think what throws it off is having to include the second on the Waddle side. I think if that pick wasn't there, it would make more sense for me. Uh, because to me, McLaurin equals a mid 25 second. So you're trading Pickens and Likely for Waddle. Likely really is, in all honesty, Likely is nothing in this trade. The other managers properly identified the fact that out of everybody in this league who would value Likely more than he's worth, it is you because you have Mark Andrews. But in actuality, he's really a nothing piece. So I'm taking Waddle over George Pickens every day of the week because I value McLaurin as the second. So I think that second is really throwing things off. If you knock that pick off, I would still take Jalen Waddle, but I think it makes it more of a conversation. So that's the way that I would break this trade down and look at it from a roster standpoint. P to the R, he's back. Hope fatherhood is treating you well. So far, it is. Yeah, Oliver, he's been that's why that's why I haven't streamed in a month. For anybody that didn't know, is my wife and I just had a baby. He was born a month ago tomorrow, June 13th. So I have been taking care of a newborn. No, he's been great. He sleeps really, really well. A lot throughout most of the day. He definitely sleeps really well at night. He only gets up like twice. So I take one of them and then my wife takes another. She's on maternity leave for the next couple of months. So she's doing really, really well as well, too, in her recovery. So, I mean, I'm sorry to all the parents who had rough, kid experiences. I'm sure if we had another or two others that we would get one of them, but we've been very fortunate, very lucky in the sense that our firstborn has been really, really not superly overly difficult. He has newborn difficulties just because we have to feed him every couple hours, and it's really frustrating sometimes when we can't figure out what is actually wrong with him. Sometimes, if he's hungry or gassy or too hot, too cold. I don't know. It's been figuring all that out. It's been an adjustment, but overall, it's been a very fun experience for sure. He's fantastic. So, um, yeah, thank you. Country Time 10. Herbert is definitely a good buy low, right? Surely he returns to top 10 guy eventually. Talent is undeniable. I do agree with that. I do think that we're going to get to a point where Justin Herbert is undervalued. We might honestly be at that point right now. I had KTC up because I was looking at the rankings for a video that I was working on. The issue is on KTC, he's QB9. And I take issue with that because I don't think that he is going to be better for Dynasty in the next year, 2, or maybe even 3 years than Kyler Murray, than Trevor Lawrence, than Dak Prescott, than honestly even Jordan Love and Jaden Daniels. He's ahead of all 5 of those guys. So as of right now, I don't think Justin Herbert, at least if he's at this KTC value of QB9 ahead of those other quarterbacks, and he's in the same tier as Caleb Williams, like there's really not much of a value difference between him and Caleb. As long as he's in that value range, I will be selling the crap out of Justin Herbert. But if he dips down below that, like if he's down with Brock Purdy and Tua, and maybe it's a conversation between him and Trevor Lawrence or him and Dak Prescott because of the age, there's like a 5-year age difference between him and Dak. I understand that a lot more, and I would be more willing to buy. But as long as I see Herbert in this range, ahead of Kyler, ahead of Lawrence, ahead of Jordan Love, ahead of Jaden Daniels, I still think that he's a sell. So that's where I'm at with Justin Herbert. I do definitely think that he should get back to where he was eventually, but I'm really terrified that we're just waiting on Harbaugh getting fired, or maybe it's Greg Roman getting fired for Herbert to return to that kind of production, because it was a lot based on his overall volume compared and overall volume in congruence with his talent, whereas now he just really has to bank on his talent with less overall volume. So that's kind of where I'm at with Herbert and why he's a sell for me right now, and will continue to be a sell for me. Like I said, as long as he's ahead of all those other guys. But if he dips outside the QB1 range, then I'd buy in. And if your league is valuing him not as a QB1, then I would buy in. Oh, 1 second. Water. Mm-hmm. Fantasy Condo in a 10-team start 11 half PPR Superflex league. Would you sell Michael Pittman for a 26 first from a team with an aging roster? Now Michael Pittman is worth more than a 26 first. He's worth more than a 25 first as well too. I understand the aging roster argument that, if that team ages out this year and next year combined, maybe potentially with him trading away a 26 first, he's possibly also traded away his 25 picks to stay competitive and buy those aging pieces. Then that would make you think that you would have an early 26 first. But I think I would rather just have Michael Pittman. I think you can go through and use the production that he has this year, even with all the other wide receivers that you have, or there's a different way that you can trade Michael Pittman to where you're upgrading more rather than just side grading, really is what it feels like, to a 2026 first. So you have all of these wide receivers still in the start 11, but I mean, you're starting the three running backs, super flex. So there's another 2. You're starting a tight end. So there's 6. So you have to start 5 of these wide receivers out of Jefferson, Lamb, 2 of which you're starting. Evans is a third start. So you have to pick 2 out of Pittman, Dell, Rice, and Hollywood every single week. How can you trade up at the wide receiver position to move up and get a Garrett Wilson, move up and get a Puka Nacua, move up and get an AJ Brown, or even like a Tyreek Hill or somebody like that to compete and have a better individual starting lineup and better individuals wide receiver than just all of this depth piece, and you've had to trade away Michael Pittman for a 26 first? Because I think Pittman would be easier to move with one of these wide receivers than one of these wide receivers in a 2026 first, especially to a contender that or somebody who might view themselves as a contender if they have that more elite wide receiver. It's probably easier to trade away Pittman and Tank Dell for Puka Nakua than it is Dell in the 26 first for Puka Nakua. You know what I mean? And that might be a trade scenario where I would be more inclined to sell Pittman than just trading him for a 2026 first. That's kind of what goes through my head for evaluating this trade. I'd rather have Pittman than 26 first. And I think there's better things that you can do with Pittman to improve your roster. Yeah, Matt, if you're getting Jalen Waddle, smash that trade for sure. Like if that's a trade in your inbox that somebody sent you, smash that trade for sure. Country Time was a Fields lover, but it's finally time to just get what I can for him, right? He may be a short-term stud, but I feel like he's had plenty of chances to prove passing chops and he just doesn't have it. Um, there's a balance with Justin Fields, I think, to where if he's just like chilling on your roster as like your QB4 or whatever, um, then maybe yeah, you could sell him just because you could find one of the rebuilding teams that would be willing to take on Justin Fields, and maybe you get something that is usable to you as a contender. That I'm not opposed to doing that. If you're a complete rebuild, I would hold on to Justin Fields on the shot that he gets a start with Pittsburgh, on the shot that maybe he stays in Pittsburgh, on the shot that he gets a second opportunity, or I guess at this point it's a third opportunity on a different team as a starter. I mean, Marcus Mariota was a backup for the Philadelphia Eagles, then went and became the starter for the Falcons as a bridge quarterback. So maybe that happens with Justin Fields. And I think Fields is better than Mariota was, at least as you know, in his body of work as a starter, and still projecting him forward to where Mariota was behind Jalen Hurts and then moving to Atlanta. So I would hold on to Fields if you're in that situation. But if you're like a full on contender, you already have your quarterback situation all set, and Fields can get you something that you know, helps improve your roster. Like Dale moved Fields in a 25 first for Dak. If you can move that, if you can do this trade in a super flex league, then I would 100% be willing to do that. And that's how I would be utilizing Justin Fields, and buy something that can actually help you from a contender, or from a rebuilder as a contender. If you're a rebuilder or you're just kind of in the middle of the pack, I would take the lottery shot on Fields being a bridge quarterback somewhere else next year, 2026 or something like that. Like there's no harm in holding on to him. He's still, at least for fantasy, like a very electric quarterback. So somebody might bite even for like a second round pick if you were to get back into a starting role. Vince, in a 12-team start, 1 quarterback, which wide receiver would you tier off to add an RB, and what kind of package could you expect? Ayuk, Higgins, Olave, London are the tier down options. I have Bijan in a hero RB build at the moment. You also have Marvin, Jetta, but they're not going anywhere for sure. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jefferson are not going anywhere. All right. So the way that I'm looking at this is I'm trying to find who is the most valuable wide receiver on this list that I'm comfortable moving off of. And for me, that is Chris Olave. Um, I've been not really anti Olave, just kind of like deflated hope for Olave since the beginning of the offseason, basically, that like he still has Derek Carr at the quarterback position. The offense hasn't really changed. Their cap situation as a team is just so incredibly bad for the next couple of years that like if Olave doesn't have a breakout season, he is really just essentially Terry McLaurin. And that's really, really sad. But we have seen what happened with Terry McLaurin. It's kind of the same situation on a really bad team, really bad quarterback play, still uber elite from an NFL standpoint. He's putting up 1,000 yards consistently, but like from a fantasy standpoint, that's just not really a difference maker. And it's not really getting you anything, especially compared to the value that Olave has had coming into the season and still currently has as like a dynasty wide receiver 1. Like on KTC, he is the wide receiver 12. Valued ahead of Ayuk. That's insane to me. But so I would be looking at Chris Olave as a tier down option at wide receiver for a running back. Now you can move, we can kind of drum up some trades here for you. Let me get into the analyzer. This is a 12 team, one quarterback. Perfect. So if we were to just say, I actually have a running back video. That's the video that I was working on earlier with KTC. I'm working on a which running backs to buy right now. So this is kind of a preview for that. But if we were to just say Ramondre Stevenson is a good trade down target, you could move Chris Olave for Ramondre Stevenson, and I have to log in. Wow, there's a massive difference between Olave and Ramondre Stevenson. You can move Olave down to Stevenson and pick up another wide receiver like a Brian Thomas Jr. or a Jaden Reed or a George Pickens, maybe Jordan Addison, Tank Dell, JSN. Like that is what the trade analyzer says that you could possibly do. Don't know if it's as legit because Ramondre's value seems really low in here, but that's something that you could try. You could try a Josh Jacobs. If you move from Olave down to Josh Jacobs, you could be looking, you're kind of in and around the same range, so to speak, of wide receivers. You're probably not going to get to the Tank Dell and Jordan Addison, but if you looked at BTJ or Xavier Worthy or George Pickens, anybody kind of in that range for the wide receiver position, if you're competing, you could maybe also still get somebody like a Mike Evans or an Amari Cooper. And that could help your team out a lot just by doing that one trade down. There's a few. I'd basically be exploring. Look at the teams in your league that are more likely to be in the rebuilding direction. Identify which running backs they have. If there's any running backs that fit into more of a competitive window, like a Josh Jacobs, like a Ramondre Stevenson, like maybe an Isaiah Pacheco or somebody along those lines, and then try to fit a plus piece in there for Chris Olave that makes sense. So that's the way that I would approach it if I were you, Vince. Is basically identify the teams that want Olave as more of a rebuild. Try to figure out which running backs then are on your trade for possibly list, and then fit that in a trade. Maybe you just get a future first. Maybe you get a younger wide receiver, maybe an older wide receiver to help compete this year. That's what I'd be looking for, though. John, 10 team PBR, start 10, no tight end premium, one quarterback league. Any changes here with this current roster? One quarterback league with Hurts and Richardson, top tier. I'll give you an A. ETN, Pollard, is that Jonathan Taylor and Devin Singletary? You got both Moss and Chase Brown and Spears. No, maybe Moss, Chase, and Spears. I'm assuming that's Chase Brown and Zach Moss. Running, you might hear him crying in the background. Running back position looks great. You said that's JT. So yeah, JT and ETN, that's fantastic. Then you got the upside shots on Pollard, Singletary, Moss, Spears. Love that. I'll give you A- on that one for the running back position. Neighbors, BTJ, Puka, Devonta, Garrett, Addison. Holy crap, dude. Tank Dell. I'll give you an A- on that one as well too. I feel like you have a lot of depth here, but it is a start 10, so you can do well. It's just I gave you an A- just because you have pieces here that haven't necessarily hit yet. So we're waiting on Garrett Wilson. We're waiting on BTJ. We're waiting on Malik Neighbors. So hopefully they do well. And they're projecting to do well. Devonta Smith's going to be solid. Puka's going to be great, as we know. Addison, and Tank Dell just got to get through their stuff. Leggett hopefully hits. The only position then is just TJ Hawkinson. So I don't know, John, if you were here at the very beginning, but I recommended taking TJ Hawkinson as a contender and flipping him for another tight end, whether that's for flipping him for Mark Andrews, flip him for a Kincaid, flip him for Pitts, Travis Kelce plus something because of the age difference, add something to him and move up to a McBride or a Laporta. How can you move off of TJ Hawkinson? Because my guess is you're going to have to play Dallas Goedert for half the seasons, more than what you would want to play Dallas Goedert, I think. So, how can you move TJ Hawkinson and we'll call it Jordan Addison and go up and get, Trey McBride or Sam Laporta and maybe another wide receiver that's like a Christian Kirk or somebody like that. Um, and that gets you your starting tight end, refills your wide receiver room, and all of a sudden you're just from that one move, you've taken your team from an overall like B plus down up into an A or A minus. That's what I'd be looking to do. Um, and with 4 firsts too, heck, you can go buy Mark Andrews for a 25 first and then have Andrews and Hawk. And then see what you can do maybe with trading up at the wide receiver position. Trade Devonta Smith and Jordan Addison for Amon-Ra or somebody, AJ Brown. Do that. I think if you do both of those moves, trade away Hawk or go buy a different tight end to keep Hawk, and then do a 2-for-1 at the wide receiver position to get you another top 5 guy like Puka, I think your team just, your team's outlook for 2024 just greatly improved just from those 2 moves that didn't really feel like they did all that much, but moves you into a much better direction or maybe a much more confident direction for 2024, I should say. Joe, what's up, my man? Happy Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. Thank you for all you do and congratulations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jordan, your advice has helped me build my team. I'm stacked. A. Rich, Murray, Hurts, Bijan, Brees, Swift, Puka, Marvin Harrison Jr., London, Waddle, T, Evans, McBride, Ingram. Jeez, oh man, dude. This is incredible. 100% you did this just to brag, but if I helped you build it, then I will accept your brag. Incredible work, my man. Absolutely killing it. Relative to price, what quarterback would you go after for as QB2, Lawrence, Love, or Herbert? That is actually the order that I would have them in. So I think Lawrence is the cheapest, but I don't think it's all that different from the other two. So I would go with Trevor Lawrence. Then Jordan Love is the middle cheapest, the second cheapest, second most expensive. So I go with him and then Herbert. That's the exact order. If you were to include Dak into this, Dak would be number 1, then Lawrence, then Love, then Herbert. If you were to include Kyler into this, Kyler would be number 1. So Kyler, Dak, Lawrence, Love, Herbert is the way I would go. 100% brag, but you help. Thanks for all you do. Absolutely, my man. Love the brag. Here for the brag. Come back in at the beginning of January or the end of December, and we'll celebrate your championship. Love it. 12 team zero flex, 2 tight end premium, Devy League, start 11. Gibson, Pollard, or Kincaid and Brooks would be receiving the Gibbs side. Other tight ends are Kittle and Sanders. Interesting. I'm actually going to take the Kincaid and Brooks side on this one. I think in a start, or not in a start two, a 2 PPR tight end premium league really kicks up Dalton Kincaid. Brooks, I'm so high on Brooks. I think that he has the potential to be a top 5 dynasty running back by this time next year. So I would keep Dalton Kincaid in the tight end premium format, and I like having Jonathan Brooks there as that really good plus piece that has good projection moving forward, rather than Pollard's getting older and people already start to hate him. And Gibbs is great, but I think just because of the format, I'd rather have Kincaid and Brooks. Ken, 16 seems to reflects with 3 wide receivers. Looking to upgrade from Jaden Reed as my wide receiver 2. Any suggestions for wide receivers to target? Also have Downs, Pearsall, Polk, Burton to maybe add to a package. So I'd love to see maybe if you could try to move up to a Tank Dell or a George Pickens or a T. Higgins. I think that you would have to include Downs or Pearsall to make that work. You might not have to include both those guys, but I think you got to include at least Downs, Pearsall, or Polk. One of those 3 to make that happen, to move from Jane Reed up to Tank Dell or up to Pickens or up to T. Higgins or up to DK Metcalf would also be in that range and on my list. Those 4 guys, I think, all basically keep you in the same age range, but I think have better opportunities for more explosive fantasy production. Maybe not on a given week, because Reed can still be great on a given week, but over the entire course of a season, over the next couple of seasons, I think that they project for higher target shares, more stable, consistent production, and also still the same boom potential on any given week. Um, so it'd be those four guys, and again, add Downs, add Purcell, add Polk, add one of them who and offer up, send a trade offer to all four of those managers if they're all on four different teams for all four of those receivers, Tank, Pickens, Metcalf, Higgins, and say your choice of Downs, Purcell, or Polk plus Jaden Reed for one of those guys. See which ones gets you a hit. And maybe you got to add Burton on top of that. Maybe you got to add a third. Maybe it's something else down the road. Maybe you create a bigger package overall where now you're including quarterbacks or tight ends and running backs. But that would the crux part of the trade would be Reed plus one of those wide receivers for Dell, Pickens, Higgins, or DK would be my four targets. Thank you for making it easier to decline that trade. Was thinking the same thing. Absolutely, my man. Yep. Kincaid and Brooks, keeping them for sure. Whiskey Traveler, 12x9, Superflex, no tight end premium. Looking for an upgrade or no tight end at all? No tight end premium. Looking for an upgrade at running back. Who are you after your current team is below? Waiting for the team to type it out. While you do that, Jordan, what is your strategy for trading in a startup? Do you like to trade down for future picks? How do you go about it? Honestly, I really dislike trading in startups because I feel like it's just so easy to get lost in the sauce of, you're like, all right, I want to move from the 108, I'm going to move down to the 2.07 and I'm going to be able to draft this player. But then to do that, I'm going to be able to, I'll ask for their extra fourth, but then to even it out, I'll give them a ninth, but then to even that out, I'll give them a 14th. And I feel like it's just so easy to like just start clicking buttons. You have no idea what the heck is going on that, sometimes I think you're more prone to make bad deals, and you're more prone to make bad deals, especially because you are trying to navigate a draft board that has so many other variables. And especially if you're in a league with other uh, people that you don't know their tendencies, you don't know their values, you don't know their, who they love and don't love, the format, blah, 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 that you're just trying to predict stuff that seems very hard to predict. And I think that just could be a me problem. I could just be really bad at that. But I just really in general don't like trading during starts because I think there's a higher propensity for you to make a mistake. Now, like the way that I would trade during startups is, if I see a tier is about to end before my pick comes up, I'll move up a few picks and go up and get somebody. If I really don't like this whole situation, like you can see that there are points in ADP where there's like a whole round that feels really flat. Maybe it's a round and a half that feels really flat in value. If you have a pick that's dead center in that range, try to move out or try to move up. I would like to do that beforehand before people start to realize that like, yeah, this whole entire range of wide receivers and tight ends all feel the same. So I want to either move out of that by moving up or moving down. Those are really the only ways that I'd really trade during startups. I do prefer to move down for future picks. I do like accumulating future firsts, future seconds, because sometimes people get really loose with those, especially if they start projecting themselves to be a contender during the startup. So much can happen that makes them not be a contender. That if you get into those future firsts and give yourself more shots for next year, that you have a higher likelihood to have more valuable picks next year. On top of the fact that you could still have a very competing roster if you trade down intelligently, I would say. So I do like to trade down, but I am willing to trade up as well too. But sometimes if I just see a trade somebody offers me a trade and it's got like 3 of his picks for 4 of my picks, I just kind of hit decline because I don't really, I'm not in the business of trying to figure that out for ADP. I like to make micro moves during the startup. All right, back to Whiskey Traveler. We're going to take a look at his roster while I rehydrate. No starting tight ends. They're just flex wide receivers. Love it. Oh, I love that as well too. I think that makes the tight end values better, in my opinion. Might be a hot take, but I do kind of like that format. All right. Looking to upgrade at running back. Who are you going after with this team right now with 225 firsts, 426 firsts? Another person who would probably really enjoy my running back video coming out soon, possibly Sunday, more than likely Monday or Tuesday, but it's coming. So to spoil my video a little bit, Josh Jacobs and Ramondre Stevenson would be two people that I might feel comfortable sending one of those 25 firsts for. If you have seconds, I would be looking at Monty or Javante or Tony Pollard. And then you could fill in depth from there as well too with handcuff guys or older veterans. Like you already have Connor, but like I think Zeke is another good one of an example of a player that could have value just by falling into the end zone 15 times, which I think is a real possibility as like this year's not Jamal Williams, but kind of this year's Jamal Williams. This year's LeGarrette Blount from like 7 years ago when he scored 15 touchdowns or whatever. So those would be running backs that I would be looking at those kind of price points, and you can kind of fill out your running back room from there. Where if you trade one of your first for one of the higher end guys, then trade maybe if you have an extra second, do that for an extra added depth as well too. You're starting 9, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that was your starting 9. So I like the wide receiver room, like the quarterback room a lot, like that you don't have to start a tight end. So having the stable of running backs of Swift, Connor, Chase, and if you add another guy or two to that list to have a rotating group of running backs that you just kind of plug and play depending on matchups and injuries and bye weeks, I think that extends the probability of you going all the way in 2024 by having that depth at the running back position. So hopefully that answered your question, Whiskey Traveler, in terms of kind of who to look for and what to pay for him. Again, my video is almost exactly that with justification for all of it too. So that'll be coming out, but that's kind of the TLDR. Philip, 12-team Superflex, 6 quarterback scoring per touchdown. Give Trevor Lawrence, Nix, and Rice for Anthony Richardson and a 2025 second. Rebuilding my quarterbacks are Trevor Lawrence, McCarthy, and Bo Nix. No, I would hold on to Lawrence, Nix, and Rice. Especially as a rebuilder, I'd rather have all the extra assets than just compiling them all into one, because then you're really dependent on Anthony Richardson doing well. Whereas with Trevor Lawrence, Nix, and Rice, you have 3 individual opportunities and arguably 3 great opportunities for all 3 of those guys to gain value. If Trevor Lawrence has a return to 2022 form this year, he will gain value. If Bo Nix proves that he is like a solid starting quarterback in the NFL, then I think that he's going to gain a lot of value. And Rashee Rice, as soon as he's back on the field or as soon as we understand what his contract situation is and Hollywood's a free agent next year, like Rice could gain a lot of value as well too. So as a rebuilder, I'd rather have the 3 shots on asset improvement, asset value gain, than one big shot on it and a whatever on a 25 second, So give me Lawrence, Nix, and Rice. Unless that's Brennan Rice, then maybe that changes something. But I'd still rather have Lawrence and Nix if that's Brennan Rice. Aaron, part of one of 2, 10-team Superflex, half PPR, start 9. Stroud, Lawrence, Bijan, Etienne, 103 JSN, Deontay Johnson, 4 Justin Jefferson and or Trevor Lawrence, 25 first, 204. Oh, all right, hold on. 2 different trades. Recalibrate. 103 JSN, Deontay Johnson, 4 Justin Jefferson is one trade, and or Trevor Lawrence, a 25 first, 2.04 for Hurts, Diggs, and the 3.06. person I'm trading's first. Interesting. Are they rebuilding? Is that person you're trading's first? Are they rebuilding? And they want their first back so they can rebuild? That's question number one. Um, as for the Justin Jefferson trade, um, that's really enticing for JJ. I think I'd probably pay that. Like if we just plugged in just for easy comparison, if that was Malik Neighbors, JSN, and Deontay Johnson, I am taking Justin Jefferson. With it being Jaden Daniels, I do think Daniels is slightly better, and because he's got the premium of the quarterback position and the super flex, but you already have Stroud and Trevor Lawrence, possibly trading Lawrence for Jalen Hurts. Maybe Daniels is not as valuable to you. You have Garrett Wilson and Nico already, so adding Justin Jefferson to that list would be great. Your starting nine, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I mean it fits out pretty well for the start nine as well. You'll probably draft a rookie or somebody like that at oh well, you're drafting Marvin Harrison, so never mind. So you're drafting Marvin Harrison and you're adding. I would do the Justin Jefferson trade. And the person that you're trading's 25 first is teetering on a rebuild. Nah, I'm holding that pick hostage. Because I'm already on the fence with this trade. Like, I think that Trevor Lawrence and a 25 first to go up for Jalen Hurts is fine. I don't know if I would pay the 2.04 for Diggs in the third. I'm just not really into Diggs. And my video about Diggs a couple of days ago kind of explains why. I'm just not really into it. So especially if that 25 first is teetering on more than likely probably being a non-playoff first, which in a 10 team is a top 5 pick next year, possibly even a top 4 pick if he doesn't make the playoffs, if he goes in for that rebuild. I want to hold on to that first and just hold it hostage. And if it's as simple as you remove the 2.04 for and Diggs in the 306 and you just make it Lawrence in the first for Hurts, I think I'd be more inclined to do that and not get Diggs on top of it as well. So do the Justin Jefferson trade, hold that 25 first pick hostage until you get something a little bit better. Doesn't have to be much better, but just like a little bit more worth your while to move off of a potential top 4 pick. That's the way I would look at it. But boom, there we go. Almost 1:00. We are at the end of the questions. So if anybody has any questions or comments or anything like that at the Cooper instead of Diggs, Cooper is more interesting. That I would probably do. I still really wish I wouldn't have to move the 2.04, but the 2.04 for Amari in a third to me feels better than Diggs in a third because you have more longevity with Amari for probably the same, if not honestly even better production because Amari is the wide receiver 1, whereas Diggs is the 2A, 2B, 3, you know? So. John, I missed your question entirely. I did see that because we went from Whiskey Traveler's question down to Jordan's, then we went back to Whiskey, and I completely missed over your first question on this. So thank you for bringing this back up. Feelings on DeAndre Hopkins, Josh Palmer, and Khalil Shakir for the original question was this one. What kind of outlook do you have for Hopkins, Palmer, Shakir, and what do you think you can trade them away for? Just wondering. So Hopkins, I'd be fine trading away for a second. I think he's going to be fine, but it really all just hinges on Will Levis. And then you add, like, Hopkins was already kind of struggling last year. He really dipped from his production that he had in Arizona, obviously, but that could be a Levis thing. That could be an offense thing. Now you add in Calvin Ridley. You add in, a Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears in there as well, too. It is going to be a more pass-friendly offense, so maybe those additions are mitigated by more volume just overall as a team. But I like if you can trade out of Hopkins for like a second, I'm kind of okay doing that. Um, Palmer, I think is interesting. He's basically the cheapest wide receiver on that Chargers team that actually has a shot to be the wide receiver one. I don't think I would trade Palmer away for a third. I feel like I'd rather just see what happens in season. And if he ends up being the wide receiver one, I think you can flip for a second or maybe multiple seconds in season, a la like you found this year's Adam Thielen, so to speak, with Josh Palmer. Um, so I'd hold on to Palmer. Shakir, kind of in the same boat, but I don't think has the potential to be the wide receiver one in Buffalo. I think Coleman and Curtis Samuel are much better shots at being the wide receiver one, and Shakir doesn't really profile as a one. Palmer kind of really doesn't either, but we've seen him operate as the one before whenever Keenan and Mike Williams were both out. We've never seen Shakir operate as the one, and I don't think that he has the skill set nor the body type size to really be like the one. Like he's like 5'9", 180, if that even. How big is Khalil Shakir? Because I remember he was small whenever I was looking at him coming out of college. Uh, he's 6'1", 190. That's not bad. I'm giving more. I'm not giving him enough credit on that one. Shakir, I'd be more comfortable trading away for a third. If you kind of feel the same way you do about him, about Palmer, where you think that he has an opportunity to do more, thus you could trade him for more in season. We just need to see the production. I'm fine with that because there's not really an opportunity cost if you miss out on that. But he's somebody that I'm fine trading away for a third or a couple thirds, or maybe you trade him for like if you can trade Shakir for Jalen Wright right now, I would 100% do that. I'd rather have like Javon Baker than Khalil Shakir. Um, I'd rather have Ray Davis than Khalil Shakir on his own team. So there are like very specific rookies in the third round this year that I'd rather have. But or you could keep Shakir. I'm not really like I don't really have much against him either. Where were we? Tournament market is rough. Spending 26 first on Baker Mayfield. Yeah, I would do that. Yep, I'm comfortable doing that. Especially because the rest of your team, you're contending. So yeah, I would spend a 26 first on Baker. Philip. What needs to be added to Olave to get to Puka? I don't think it would be a first, but it's got to be something that rides that border because you're not going to get it done with a second or a couple of seconds. But I would not. Jordan Addison would be a player that if you had like an Addison level wide receiver, Zay Flowers would be a player that I would do it with. Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. I don't know necessarily like what you have on the roster to offer that up, but that kind of ish range is what I would be willing to pay to add to Olave to get to Puka. Might be able to get Kincaid for Goddard second and either Palmer or Shakir. Yeah, nope, that would do that. I would do it with either Palmer or Shakir. I would prefer to trade Shakir, but I would do it with either of them or both of them, honestly. Just go up and get Kincaid. Kincaid projects so much better than Goddard in a second, and the other two are just fun throw-ins. I'd rather do it with Shakir. If it's up to you, do it with Shakir, though. It is what I would do. QBs that I tried to attain and not successful, only Baker's available. Man, you tried. You tried basically everybody. I'm going to give you a gross option, but it might be worth it depending on the cost. If you can get Daniel Jones for like an extra 26 second or maybe a couple of thirds, it might be worth it. I think Levis is kind of in that same category. If you can get Levis for less than a first, I would try that as well too. Or you have Levis. No, you have Bryce. Those would be ones that I'd be interested in. Like Daniel Jones is just only interesting because I think his price is just so cheap that I think he might be worth it. Levis at least has upside to be a long-term starter. Longer term starter, I should say, maybe not long term, but longer term, and has rushing upside. and has passing upside throwing to Hopkins and Ridley and Pollard and Spears and Chig. Jason, hey, Addison, how do you feel about Jalen Hurts moving forward, and what would you pay for him? Is he a sell due to his peak value? Honestly, I don't think that he has peak value. I think his peak value was last year. This year, this off season, based on what I've seen, it seems like he has been dropping out of like he doesn't seem to be like going into last year. It was we have a top three of Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, whatever order. This year, it seems like we have like Allen's lost a little bit of value, maybe because he's lost Stephon Diggs. Mahomes has maybe lost a little bit of value just because he doesn't feel as game breaking because he had a mediocre QB8 season last year. And Hurts feels like he lost value because of what happened at the end of last year, that he just had a rough second half, really a rough like final 7 games. So I don't think I would consider him having peak value right now. If you can buy him for 2 firsts, I would 100% be willing to do that. If you could upgrade one of your quarterbacks, like you have like a mid to higher end QB2 and can add a first to him and go up and get Jalen Hurts, I would be willing to do that. Because I do still think that he has, like, I still have him ranked as my QB3. I think it's between him and Lamar Jackson. Stroud is the 5 for me. But I like Hurts is still elite, in my opinion. He still has AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. Now he's throwing a Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. And he's still mobile, still going to score touchdowns inside the goal line, inside the 3, 5, 1. Maybe not as many. Maybe he doesn't score 14, but if he scores 9 or 10, because 5 of them others went to Saquon, that's still going to be great. He's still going to be elite. So I'd try to see. I feel like his value is a little depressed right now. I'd try to see if you can get him for 2 firsts. I'd be willing to pay 3, but I'd see if you can get 2 in a second or something like that. Josh Palmer will be the wide receiver 1 because he's from the greater Toronto area. I don't make the rules. Yes. Just like Chase Claypool, right? Matt, where do you stand on Jelani Woods, garbage platoon tight end or next big thing? I'm kind of like, if I was to be on this spectrum where it's like 1 he's garbage, 10 he's the next big thing, I'd probably put him at a 3. That's kind of where my rating would be on him right now. I do think that he has upside. Like I could see him being a 4, 5, 6 by the end of the year, as kind of like, by 2025, he's kind of like the next big thing. Like if he's like what Juwan Johnson was heading into last year, this time next year, I would not be surprised. If he's, kind of like in that list of intriguing deeper round tight ends next year, I wouldn't be surprised. So I think he's solid. I think he has opportunity. I think that he can be the tight end 1 in Indy. And I think that that could be an interesting role with Anthony Richardson. But it's just so easy to bet against that because there's so many other factors that just show that he's probably not going to be anything. So I'd bring him at a 3 out of 10 with potential to go a little bit higher. That's kind of where I put him. I don't think I would sell him I'd probably sell him for a 4th. If you can sell him for a 3rd, that'd be great. But yeah, he's just kind of there as like a depth piece, fun depth piece tight end. Not Mapletron. How much of a super chat to get a baby up in here? I don't even know what he's doing right now. I think he just ate. Hold on, let me see. Let me text my wife. Hey, he's coming. This will be how we end the show. We had an introduction. And then we'll get we'll throw out, what do you think is a good line? Over under 6.5, 7.5 years before he's up here taking my spot as an analyst. What do you guys think the line should be set at? 6.5, 7.5, 8.5? Less than that, maybe? I don't know. Caleb, by the way, love the new avatar. 3 years, Jordan. Love it. Oh, here he is. You don't have to be on camera if you want to, but you just see. Oh, you put him in sharks today.
Yep.
Put him in. Oh, bright lights. Bright lights. There he is. He's holding on to the necklace. Ollie, look at his name's Oliver. Look at the camera. No, the camera's over there. There he is. Hi, buddy. He turns a month old tomorrow. 1 month old tomorrow. He seems a little starstruck. That's him, though. The light's a little bright on him, I think.
Take him.
Here, I'll give him back to you. There you go. Yay.
First appearance.
First appearance. People are saying that it's going to be only a couple years before he's co-hosting up here with me.
Better get started.
He's going to learn all of the dynasty trades inside and out. He's going to replace Justin. That's what people are saying. Caleb, you're funny. There he is. What a way to end the show with an Ollie appearance. All right. Beautiful. Congrats, y'all. Thank you, man. Thank you, everybody. I told you, he's great. He's a fantastic little baby. He's been super calm. We're very lucky, very fortunate. He's growing. He's healthy. He was 8 pounds, 12 ounces when he was born, and he's up to 10 pounds, 6 ounces, or he was up to 10 pounds, 6 ounces on his appointment on Tuesday. So he's probably more than that. He's probably almost 11. But yep, that's the life. That's what we're doing it for, So, but yeah, it seems like we've reached the end of the questions. We got an Ollie appearance, so it seems like a good way to end the day on this beautiful, beautiful Friday. So I appreciate everybody for hanging out for the past hour or so like that, asking all the questions. If you have more questions, feel free to drop them down into the comments of this show, and I will answer them on the back end. So I'll go through all of this. If you have more questions, definitely drop it down in the comments on the replay of the stream or any other video, and I will answer them for sure. Congrats to you both. Thank you, Sawyer. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic Friday, a fantastic weekend as well too, and we will continue back onto the weekly grind of the Friday AMAs, moving from here on out until the season. So yeah, it's gonna be really, really fun. We're rolling up into 2024 regular season quickly. All right, appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic day, fantastic weekend. I'm terrible at closing these things out, but we will see you guys next week. Later.